This is Eric Rutan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew McKay Smith.
Ahoy, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in. I've got a conversation with one of the great rock and roll luminaries, Strum, to share with you. Now, he's been the bassist with Vinnie Vincent, Invasion, Vince Neil, but most significantly, Slaughter. That's his band. Okay, now they are due to appear at Glam Fest. I hope it still goes bloody ahead because the Brisbane shows have been cancelled. They're happening at the end of this week, that being the 17th of February, I think is the show. Either way, I'll put the... Hardly any of you listen from Australia, so it's sort of beside the point, isn't it? But I'll put the show dates in the episode description if you are on shore. Now, this conversation is one of those ones I've been hoping to have for a long time. It was a bucket list item, I've got to say, because Dana has all of the stories and he shares many of them here. It could have gone on for much longer, no doubt, but why not save a bit of that mystery and that intrigue for his autobiography? Okay, here he is, Strum.
Hello there. How are you?
Great to, I guess, you know, what can I say? Great to finally talk to you. You're one of those blokes that I've had on my radar as a podcaster for many years now. So it's just awesome that this could happen, actually.
Very nice to meet you, and thank you for being aware of myself and the band. And I see guitars in the background, and I see vinyl in the background, and I see CDs in the background. So you're a music guy, which I love. Anybody who loves music, so that's great.
Yeah, I've just come off 70,000 tons of metal as well. If you've heard of that, and if you've ever had the chance to go on it, but if you haven't, please do, because it's unreal.
Yeah, we do Monsters of Rock cruise, and it's one of those experiences too. You come off and you're very moved at the people's enthusiasm and dedication and knowledge of everything, and it's I love those things. They're really cool.
This tour coming to Australia, I know it's been a long time coming. So how did it come about?
Here's the real truth, that on the very first Slaughter tour was the Kiss tour, and then we did Poison, and then we did Ozzy No More Tears tour, but never once were we ever asked to go. And people like, why didn't you come over? I'm like, we were never asked. And Danny contacted our agent, and then we all put a conference together. And I said, do you think there's enough interest in the Slaughter music there to do what you need? And I'm going to make a big festival. I said, well, forget just the big festivals. Is there enough interest in our music to do this? And because I don't want you to lose, and I want everybody to win. We do really well in the US, Canada, Mexico, and Japan. And I'd love to be able to go back to new areas. I'm excited about it. Everybody here always says, oh God, tell me what it's like. There's a lot of interest from US people about what it's like in Australia. But we were never asked. So Danny talked about it. And I said, well, let's sleep on it. Just no, I don't want there to be any pressure. I want you to, if it's good for you and you've done your homework. And he said, look, I've been leaking little things out about you guys' history with Vinny and Slaughter and this. I think I have enough vibe that it'll do all right. And I'm like, it's your area, it's your market, man. If you can do it, we'd love to be there. I said, the simple truth, we've never been asked by anybody that can really pull it off.
Well, it's been a long time coming, to say the least, and I know you've been hit up by Australian fans about all of that, but given you've got a 35-year history, and that's just Slaughter, by the way. I know you've been doing this a lot longer than that, Vinnie Vincent, the work. So what sort of I know, forgive the question because I know it's the run-of-the-mill question, but in terms of the set list, have you got any ideas about what that will look like?
Yeah, so we do something a little different than many of the bands. I've been around a number of the bands, and everybody has their own method to their madness. So what Mark and I do is we pull the Sound Exchange numbers for streaming, and we pull the BMI numbers, which is a songwriting association that represents, in particular, our stuff. And then we pull off of YouTube the top plays, the top songs. because not in 1990 or 91 when the stuff came out, 92, 93, 94, but what's going on in 23 and 24. And so we pull those and they create the list out of the things that people are sucking down now. And then we always say, is there anything really missing? Now, the truth, no, there really isn't. It's everything that is the top download and top streamed thing. Flight of the Angels, Up All Night, Mad About You. Every one of them is in our list. And I'm like, well, there it is. There's the top 10, and every one of those 10 are in the core list. And, we're going to do a few different things because we've never been there. But the band plays live, and everybody in the band plays their instrument reasonably well. And so it's fun to improv and have some fun in and out of the song. So we always throw in something that's unique or different, or some Zeppelin cover, or something that, like, get out of here. They're really going to, we'll play with the Immigrant Song and things that you have to be a certain kind of singer to even do it.
Yeah, great. Yeah. Surely you've been hit up too to play some Vinnie Vincent stuff as well.
People have said things over the years, and I smile gently. That's my diplomatic response. Mark smiles a little less gently, and I think one point in life we'll probably do something. You never know. We have pulled out moments of a few of those songs, and people are like, "Wow, they're really good." Then you kind of like, "Just kidding," and it's a colorful period in our life, and we learned a lot from that period.
I usually ask this question at the end with somebody of your stature and legacy, okay, but I'm going to hit you up with it up top, and that is that too many stories are going to the grave, unfortunately, from rock and metal, okay, and we are getting to a point where people are starting to shuffle off the mortal coil, as you know. So you have not just a unique story, but the key word is a very compelling story. So please tell me you've got an autobiography in the works.
I do. We've been working, myself and my team people with me are working with a couple of best-selling authors to talk about my story, because it was so different. And I was the son of a scientist. I was thrown out of my house because I played music. And I lived on the floor of a recording studio, cleaning the toilets and wrapping cables to get a start. And they gave me a place to live as long as I could roll up my sleeping bag with a bungee cord and put it away before the doors opened. Now, I wouldn't take back a minute of that. And I'm really grateful for that, because it taught me about work etiquette. It taught me about being thankful. It taught me to recognize other people's talent. It taught me that I might not always be in the front seat. I might be behind the scenes, bringing the best out in people, whatever that may be. And it gave me early confidence to do what I did with Randy Rhoads and Ozzy. That may have never happened. I had no business deal. Who was I to really do that? I was a guy playing in a band that sounded a lot like Sabbath derivative band. I met Ozzy because somebody from his label, Jet at the time, said, "We hear this guy's band sounds like Sabbath. Maybe go down there." I mean, it was very innocent. And when I met him, I loved Black Sabbath. I still do. I think those guys started a movement that nobody has ever done it like them since they started doing it. A lot of people have emulated moments of that, but there's nobody really like those four guys on those early records that were so honest and so real. So I was lucky. And who was I to look at this guy that I idolized and thought so highly of, and said, "Hey, man, I've got a guitar player. It's going to change your life." He looked at me, "You're out of your fucking mind." And, it was a funny story, but the what had to happen to make that happen, almost part of probably helping to reinvent hard rock metal, maybe wouldn't have happened. And, you think back to that, there was skinny tie music was very popular, the Knack, Devo, a lot of these things. That's what was going on in Hollywood and Sunset Strip at the time. All of the hard rock metal stuff was really fading to black. And I remember I thought to myself, I was up in the Starwood, like there's managers and A&R people and talent scouts and agents, and not one of them is going to go tell this Randy Rhoads guy that he's great and that they can find something for him. And I remember looking around, how is this possible that no one in this room of all these great people with pedigrees is going to say shit to this kid? And I think he's the greatest thing I've ever seen. And so finally, I knocked on the dressing room door and said, I'd like to talk to you. Do you know how good you are? He looked at me like he was seeing three people. And I said, trust what I'm telling you. You are that good, and I'm going to find something somehow for you. You should not be doing what you're doing up here, and nor should I, and nor should a lot of people here. And he looked at me like, well, you don't know that. I'm like, believe it or not, guy, I kind of do. And it was one of those epiphany moments. And when I saw the world embrace him, and I thought, well, I was right. Everybody loves him. How would no one in this room get that? And I learned people may come in and out of your life and say good, bad, or indifferent things, but you've got to have a gut instinct and you got to stick to your heart. And none of those things were about money for me. I never made a dime from that. I never made a business deal. I put Jakey Lee in the band after Randy passed away. I never made any money from that. It was just the right thing to do. And it was also musically where my heart was. And I hope that by doing these things, people may learn that if I had those instincts for doing that, maybe I had other instincts that would alter or change their lives too. And I was lucky enough to be able to do some of that.
What happened after Randy passed away? Did Ozzy just come to you and say, mate, I need your help again, find me someone?
You're very close, actually. I got a call. It was Sharon, and I went through a period right as it happened where I blamed myself for what happened, because I did, in my feeling at the time, kind of push him and talk him into it. It's pretty well documented out there that he didn't really like Black Sabbath. It's well documented. Him and his band would poke fun at them. And I'm like, how do you play like that and say that? But he had a very endearing story, and I'll answer your question, but this is something to be aware of. He brought me a bootleg. Now, at the time, people would have bootlegs on reel-to-reel, vinyl, or cassette. And he brought me a cassette. I said, what's this? Is it you guys playing, some gig at the Starwood or something? He goes, no, all the stuff you like that I do, that you talk to me about, it's right here. And I'm like, oh, you're going to give me the cassette? And he goes, yeah, I want you to have this. I said, oh, so what is it? He said, well, it's everything you like, where I took it. I'm like, what do you mean where you took it? So this is the magic $20 answer here. He says, ever heard of David Bowie? I said, yeah. Ever heard of his guitar player, Mick Ronson? Now I'm staring at him with the frosted hair, the hoop earrings, his cream Les Paul, which, by the way, is exactly Mick Ronson's cream Les Paul, his polka dots, which was exactly Mick Ronson's polka dots. You could put two pictures from that time period next to each other, and I'm like, holy fuck. I never realized that he was emulating in his mind Mick Ronson, but with more classical playing and his own spin on it. And I'm like, he literally looks like Mick Ronson.
Yeah, he does.
He's done his hair.
Say that. He looks exactly the same as him in some photos. You're so right.
Absolutely, he does. Yeah. And I never, and he goes, oh, the detuning of the string and the bending of the string and the nut, all the stuff you like that I do, I took it from him. And I'm like, who the fuck would ever believe that? But yet, if you look at the pictures, you'd really believe it. As a matter of fact, it's so obvious that it was never a comparison that was widely made out there. But even his stage presence, bending down on his knees, playing to the crowd, it was Mick Ronson. And I loved Black Sabbath, And the truth was he loved Mick Ronson. And so when, but the magic of that music and the classical influence that he had, with Ozzy's, distinctive sound and vocal stylings, because the truth is people say a lot of things about a lot of people, but who really sounds like Ozzy Osbourne?
No one.
Nobody.
Ozzy, yeah.
I mean, the truth, nobody. A lot of people try to, do their thing, but no one really sounds like him. And if I love music, I love Zeppelin, I love Sabbath, I love it all. I still do. But if you and I looked at each other and said, so who's going to be bigger? Now, this is in the heyday of Stairway to Heaven and Black Dog and A Whole Lot of Love. If we looked at each other and said, who's going to be bigger and last the test of time? Ozzy Osbourne or Robert Plant? Who will play bigger shows, ongoing? We would have probably all said at the time, Robert Plant and Led Zeppelin. But Ozzy Osbourne did stand the test of time, I think, more than almost anybody ever believed it could ever be done.
Well, the philosophy behind that is it's predominantly Sharon's business now that's kept him afloat in that regard. His talent notwithstanding, but let's face it, he's been a mess for most of his life.
I met him as a mess. Yeah, I met him as a mess. And I think if I didn't shove him into doing what I did shove him into doing, what really would have happened. And it's pretty well documented out there that he himself said he didn't know. And, those early days, I loved what he did. I love the early Sabbath stuff. So for me, it was, wow, I get to work with this guy from this group I love, But yeah, I agree with you. It takes business prowess to do that. And he, with Randy, the funny thing is his instinct was to look straight at me and say simple words, tell that kid he's got a job. And it was pretty instantaneous. And I thought in my heart, that's all I wanted. That's all I wanted. I just wanted someone to recognize what I knew was true, how great this guy was, and someone to reinforce that I wasn't crazy. And he just looked straight at me, tell the kid he's got a job. He didn't flinch. So some of his gut instincts, I'll give that to him, because we saw Gary Moore together. And I said, look, that guy's fantastic. He's incredible. He's unbelievable, but he's not for you.
No.
He doesn't play your style.
Did you know Bob and Lee at all?
I'd met Bob. I recorded Bob in Salt Lake City and Boise. I recorded some Ozzy live stuff that made Rock Palace, a television show, and an EP like I'm So Tired and More. And he seemed like a good guy. I've seen an excerpt or two from his book. Ozzy used Dana at the time. Look, it was kind of mutual. And I loved Sabbath. I mean, look, everybody's got their running in their story. And I want everybody to get along. I'm that guy. Like, let's just everybody get along,
How come, okay, you're right in the center of all of this. How come, it may have, and I just haven't read about it, but how come you weren't in Ozzy's solo band? You sound like as though you would have been perfect.
Well, there was a rehearsal in Hollywood where Randy, Frankie, Ozzy, and myself were in there for a couple of days. Ozzy was managed by someone else at the time. And I or anybody else didn't really ask permission to go do that. I just took it upon myself to do it. And that person is also well documented and had a colorful past. And I think when he walked in the door and realized that, someone else kind of just did this, and, he looked up there and I saw it in Ozzy's eyes at the time, like, uh-oh. But I was so naive, I had no idea what was about to happen. I think that was a little bit the beginning of the end. He wanted him to go to England, use British musicians, and that was that. And at that moment, even I think Randy was in question. And I'm like, well, you got to take him. I mean, come on. Who, and I was emphatic. Like, look, no matter what, he's got to go. And it was hard because I felt there was some magic happening, and the rug was really yanked uh, by other business and other vibe, and I'm like, so I guess the contribution is going to be this people, if this works, that's what I will have done. And unfortunately, I won't be playing and doing what I wanted, but this is what the cards have in store for me.
Mm.
And they did. Now, in the end, when Slaughter and Ozzy toured, we had fun together. Look, he and I have Motley Crue. I've also worked with Vince, and Ozzy did some dates together. And there was a guy named Tony that was Ozzy's guy at the time. And he says, hey, he wants to talk to you. And I said, okay, cool. And, we had a very endearing start. We didn't know each other. And I loved the music that Sabbath made. I knew Tony was in my mind genius with these riffs and genius with bringing these ideas in. And I'd never heard anybody do any of this. And his sound and the way he played. And I would crusade like, you ever heard of this Tony Iommi guy? This guy changed the world. And people are like, hey, Dana, go smoke another joint.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, no, I don't think so. But now that you see Tony Iommi later, this many years later, getting the recognition that he very much deserves, he invented a certain style of music that's paved the way for people to play guitar even to this day.
I hear the stories. God, how many guitarists were thrown up as being legitimate options after Randy? Though you're touring with one, that being George Lynch. So, with the J.K. Lee thing, was that a sliding doors moment for him, insofar as he was just the man in the moment at that time?
I went to see. This time, I auditioned people differently. I got a call from Sharon, and Ozzy got on the phone. You've heard what's happened. You've got to have someone else up your sleeve. And I said, well, I got a lot of people that I think are great, but we're going to figure things out this time. And George was one of them for sure. And I went to see Jake's group called Rough Cut because Warren D. Martini and some other people had indicated this guy Jake is really good. And Jake absolutely was better than a lot of people, especially at the time, would have thought. I mean, it was a similar thing. I sat at the Troubadour and just watched him and thought, this guy's better than people are giving him credit for in this room. Like, he doesn't belong in this room. This guy's really got a thing. And when Jake played, clean, kind of classical, it was far better than anybody would think. Actually, he shined doing that, really. George kind of had the gig. And that is a story that's out there. And I was told, have him come down, he has the gig. And then I was told, hey, get the Jake guy, have him come in. And I'm thinking, but why? I just told George he had the gig. I was told to tell George he had the gig. And it was kind of a split decision. And then I was the bad guy having to tell George, hey, I don't think this is going to work out. And George quit his job, had his stuff packed. It was a really shitty deal. And I felt bad. And it was kind of, well, that's how the business goes, Dana. Now go tell Jake. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, why you go tell that guy? Why am I the bad guy? But it taught me a lot. It taught me it was another level of understanding things that I maybe would or wouldn't have done that way. And I choose to do things a little more in my own way. Had I been the 1 point person there at the time, I maybe wouldn't have done it the way that went. But I was proud to put Jake in the group. I felt bad about what happened with George. He's a great guitar player. And in the end, when Jake was fired, I tried to help him from being fired. And it just all kind of disintegrated, kind of a bad disintegration. And in the end, I know the guy, Mark Weiss, that put Zach in the game.
Yeah.
And he knew him from Jersey. He was a photographer. They were friends. And Zach's a really talented guy, too.
Nobody comes out of dealing with Sharon unscathed, though. So did you come out of it that way, or have you got a war story as well?
I think I was a little different. I didn't really ask for anything when I recorded some stuff live for a television show. I was paid through the production company, etc. Um, and I, even with Slaughter and Ozzy doing No More Tears, we never really had an issue or a problem, and it was all pretty on the up and up and good. Um, I certainly knew of stories I heard, et cetera,
Mm.
but I myself didn't encounter those. Um, look, I felt at one point there was almost this effort to quash what I had done with Randy and Ozzy. And I remember it was in the early day. I'm like, why is it that that would be being buried? And there's new versions of this going out
Yeah.
there that are absolutely not the truth. And I didn't really understand that. That makes you feel like shit. But I never really knew who and how that happened. And I just kind of washed it out of my mind and moved on. And then over time, the real story. And I thought at one point when I was seeing interviews or Ozzy and Jack or others, I'm like, well, either somebody's given someone a refresher course on what really went down, or they just know what went down. And I don't know, but I was pleased to see everybody tell the truth about it because it
Mm.
was the truth.
Yeah, and it's important the truth gets out there. I try to do that a lot on the podcast, is get to the bottom of things because there's so much bullshit narrative out there. You see it in politics in this day and age. We're in a post-truth world, but it's long been like that, as your testimony proves, in the rock and roll business. It's just crazy that the actual real story wouldn't be the one that's promoted because you're not actually asking for anything outside of just the truth to be told.
That's all I really could have hoped for. I was not selected to be in the final version of the group. So all I could hope for is what I did was put out there so that it could maybe benefit me later. And when at first it didn't seem like that was going to happen, I'm like, wow, and I'm going to get fucked there too. Really? After this? And it kind of ferreted its way out. And it's funny, I'm not even completely certain how it did, but all of a sudden I was hearing back what I knew to be the truth about what happened. And I'm like, well, that's always been my story
Yeah.
from moment one. I did a YouTube piece that was pretty widely viewed, I think between 270 and 300,000 views of a YouTube piece where one of the guys that was involved just asked me, tell the truth about exactly what happened.
Mm.
Now, that was a first opportunity to really put out there blow by blow what went on.
From the sublime to the ridiculous, though, Vinnie Vincent. Okay. Was that always as weird as it looked from the outside?
Certain moments may have been weirder. There were undiscussed moments that were just so over the top. I mean, I did everything I could after that whole thing imploded. I walked away, and the truth is, I never spoke to him again. I never said hello. I never said goodbye. I never said boo. And I felt I'm far for the better to have just walked away and done what I did. And there were certainly moments on those tours. Don't forget, Vinnie Vincent Invasion toured with Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
That in itself, is somewhat laughable. But I loved Steve Harris and I loved Iron Maiden was a touring machine, and they were great. And I learned a lot watching them operate. And so there was something in it, meaning I'm here because I'm supposed to see this. I'm supposed to be around it. I'm supposed to see this. And part of the touring business of Slaughter, a lot of it was built off a lot that I saw with both Iron Maiden and Kiss's machine of touring.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these guys know how to do this. And for better or for worse, these people absolutely have this shit down, and they got it down good. And they tour the world behaving this way and doing things this way. And I borrowed a lot of that as I could.
You're a very rational fella. I know that. I've listened to a lot of your interviews over the years, but I just can't imagine how you put up with Vinny in a tour bus and doing what you had to do with him. So look, I'm going to push you a bit on this point if it's okay. But what was the strangest thing you had to deal with Vinny?
Well, there were a lot of strange moments for sure. I didn't. First of all, I wasn't a big Kiss fan. I like some of the early songs, Strutter, Cold Gin, Deuce, but I wasn't a big Kiss guy. I love Black Sabbath, Zeppelin. I wasn't a big Kiss guy. So I didn't know a lot. So when a guy introduced me to Vincent Cassano, it was almost more as a songwriter who was trying to push these demo tapes around. And in the end, I cut up some of those demo tapes in the studio I was in to try to make something that I could maybe, okay, this, and one of the ones I played with was a ballad. It was not guitar shredding, nothing to do with it, because I thought that ballad maybe would have enough legs to get him a deal and get him somewhere. And if you're going to do that, and you're going to produce and you're going to be involved, then somebody needs to bring in money to make it work. The studio won't be free forever. And so I didn't know very much. So when I interacted at first, I said, hey, man, I really, I dig that first solo on that Lick It Up album on Exciter. I really dig that. He looks at me deadpan. He says, well, that wasn't me. That was Rick Derringer. And I'm like, oh, okay. Okay. I said something else that was an absolute complete fuck up too. And that was like, I love the riff, and there's Paul played that. And I'm like, what's funny? I guess in my mind, I'm thinking I'm loving everything. I loved everything but the thing you did. And it was just, it couldn't have been just a worse calamity, because again, I didn't know. But one of the incidents, Vinny was having an issue with tuning the guitar with a Floyd Rose locking mechanism on the top of the guitar. And he was getting more upset. And eventually he's playing by the window in the control room, and I'm sitting at the console operating the tape machine. And I said, look, don't do it. We've been recording that guitar. And if you're going to do something to that guitar, so I'm trying to be rational. And I'm like, because, we may not match it, and everything we go into is going to sound different. And he's talking to the guitar like, you motherfucker. And I'm like, wow, really? And he throws the guitar down and urinates. I said, look, don't do it, because we're going to have to pay for the carpet. We're going to have to clean it. Don't do it. And in someone else's studio, in the control room of a known Hollywood place, urinates all over the guitar and then the floor as well, of course. Yeah. And pretty much looks at me, looks at Mikey Davis, who was the other second engineer I used. I think Bobby Rock also, and basically said, I'm out of here. And I'm like, okay, well, that was fun. And there were just so many wild incidents,
Does his recent, what would you call it, unveiling coming out? I don't know, meaning his re-emergence into the public sphere. And the recent thing is he's charging people to like his Facebook page or join his Facebook page. It's I don't think it's even that unusual, but in that a lot of artists are trying to monetize, but using Facebook to do that. Do any of his actions, recent actions, the last 5 years, are they in alignment with where you think he would end up 30 years ago?
No. No. When I left, my feelings were that he'll probably never tour a full band again, because it was not him piecing it together. I was extremely involved. And I thought, and from the records that I did with him, I was extremely involved, and I don't see him doing things that sound like that again. And these were all personal opinions, just my feelings. And most of those things quite came true. Everyone in his group around him went on to do things other than him.
Yeah, he did. You're right. Yeah, he's one of those guys, isn't he? Yeah. He's a force multiplier, but he's got to be minus it. He can't be part of it. He's got to be deleted almost.
It's wild, is what it is. Does anything surprise me? No.
It's the rock and roll world is full of these stories where really where rational fellas like you have got to put up with very odd personalities. And that's what I was getting at when I said you've got to write a book about these things, because that era, it's over. I get rock and metal will continue. I've just felt it on the 70,000 tons of metal thing. There's very small degrees between, and Monsters of Rock Cruise, no doubt, same. Yeah. Very small degrees of separation between those on stage and those off it. I get that. That's why I get to do this these days. But that era that you've come from, that rock star era, where there was an opportunity for any of these guys like Vinny to break out and to become as big as John Bon Jovi, those days are just gone. Those days are over.
I think they're done. Yeah, I think it's done. I mean, they're the if you're a female solo artist and you've got great songs and a great production team and the young audience likes you, you can make a lot of money and you can stake your claim, and many of them have. If you're a male solo artist, you can do the same, and many of them have. But it's different than the rock groups. And I'd love to see some young rock group, come out and make an incredible statement and be the next AC/DC, the next Maiden, the next Sabbath, and maybe they will. And hopefully I'll still be alive to see it. I guess I'm wishful thinking. I don't know that I will be, but wishful thinking. But the people that are still doing it, hats off to all of them, in all of their own way. It's not necessarily easy. And you go through a lot of crap to do it. And the rewards are being out on the stage in front of people that enjoy the music. And I always tell everybody, look, we're just a bunch of stupid fucking entertainers. Our job is to make people feel good. That's all our job is. Just make people feel good for 90 minutes, 75 minutes, 60 minutes. And we have the greatest job in the world, making people feel good. And who couldn't like that? But there are still a lot of people out there with issues. And I can't fix those issues, and I don't want to. I work with the people that I work with, and I do the best that I can in that situation.
Yeah, I think the only opportunity for Stadium Rock to have any kind of day again would be in a singular instance, such as if Taylor Swift decided to do a rock album and bring guys like you in to oversee it from a production standpoint, because I know she'd bring in about 50 people to help her do it, or maybe she'd not even her management or what have you, but that'd be it. Otherwise, we just had Motley Crue and Def Leppard come through town and play the stadium here, and they're probably doing the same thing 35 years ago to that point. So it's the same bands that are up there.
Yeah, I agree with you. And look, it's tough. Young kids don't see any value in music. No. You can go to YouTube and just click anything you want for free. So they're brought up never going and thinking you had to go to a record store and look at the cover and look at the pictures and think about and read about it. They just click it. And if they like it, they put it on a playlist, and they never believe that you had to pay any money for this. And that's all free. And then the advertiser profits, YouTube profits, and the artist, the creator, and everybody else is pretty much left in the breeze. Flight of the Angels has 43 or 44 million views that are all natural. And that doesn't count how many times the label ripped it down in the early days when it had 4 or 5 million and it got ripped down, and 4 or 5 million got ripped down. There's live versions from some guy's cell phone with 300,000 views. And, the artists don't really make any money from this. So the model is, if you're training young people that music has no value, then creating music from the ground up as a rock band, other than becoming popular and playing live, there's no hope.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely agree. And I'm glad you frame it that way. And let's face it. But look, I'm going to make this my final question for you, and it's a big one, okay? But with a career as storied as yours, with all of both the success and the critical acclaim, what gives you the greatest sense of personal fulfillment when you look back over it all?
Well, that's a really good question. Number one, that I'm still alive and I have enough memory intact to think back at the good, the bad, the ugly. Sometimes you learn a lot from the ugly. Sometimes you learn a lot from the bad. Sometimes you can learn a lot from the good, but it takes all of it. And I'm thankful that my mind is still intact enough, and that I didn't corrupt or pollute or destroy my mentality. And I'm still able to try to encourage other writers or other musicians or other bands by trying to be rational and trying to be businesslike and on the level. Look, this has potential if done this way, and I'm not Jesus, but these are real feelings, and I've done this repeatedly. I don't get this, so I'm probably the wrong guy to work with you. But I think what you do is really good, and I'm glad looking back that I'm able to reflect back on all those things, and still kind of surmise that I was that young kid in my bedroom with a dream and a bass in my hand, and I played along to Sabbath records, Grand Funk records, Led Zeppelin records. And all I wanted to do was play maybe in front of people. And that if you have a dream and you have a talent and an instinct, you can go out and do what it is you want to do. It just might not come easy. And if it came easy, everyone would do it. So are you that guy out there that maybe can break the mold and do it? Only you would know.
Actually, I will make this my final question for you, because I've been wanting to ask you this for a while, but you've survived the good and the bad from an alcohol and a drug perspective as well. You've been around it, is what I'm saying, and you've remained intact and you're sober. How though?
I was never interested in drugs. I was lucky. I lived in LA, the Hollywood area. The studio that I worked out of, I lived on the floor with the sleeping bag. There were a lot of drugs, a lot of coke in and out of there, other harder drugs, and lots of illegal marijuana sales and all that. And as I saw people that are you in here? In my mind, are you here to play and make music? Are you in here to just get fucked up? And there were people that I really respected and looked up to that would come in so whacked out on drugs and booze. I'm like, this cannot be the guy from Deep Purple.
Yeah.
This cannot be the guy that played on these songs. Or this could not be the guy, even when I met Ozzy, and Ozzy was really annihilated, drunk, etc. I thought in my mind at first, this can't be the guy that I loved on these records. But I never knew one way or the other. I just thought in my mind, they can't be. But so I learned early on that I don't think this helps anybody write a great song, and I don't think this helps anybody make great decisions, and I don't think this is going to help anybody live a very fulfilled or enjoyable life, because a lot of these people that I met in many of those days were really pretty miserable, and they would bury their sorrows in drugs or alcohol.
Yeah.
I drink wine. I enjoy a shot of tequila or two, but I don't abuse it. And there are people that I realized they can't just have one drink or two drinks. Once they get that motor going, they can't stop. And so if you're that person, you got to reevaluate. Well, you would think you would have to reevaluate.
Right.
So I was lucky that I was exposed. People used to, put coke out, oh, come on, Danny, you do it. And I'm like, I don't do it. Oh, you do. You're talking all like that all the time. That's because I'm excited about what I do. I like this. And, so the other thing is, if you were in Hollywood at that time and you didn't do drugs, you were kind of not in the good club because you weren't like in the drug cult. So if you cared about business or cared about making recordings sound good, or you wanted to use your knowledge to make things in your face more, whatever it may be, you were not in the good club because you didn't do the line of coke with someone. And I'm like, really? Really? So I can't make your shit sound good because I'm not a fucking coke addict. And I'm in my mind, I'm like, you know what? Fuck you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's an enormous credit to your state of mind, your psyche, and your resilience to you survived that intact, because a lot haven't.
No, I work with them, and I meet them all the time, and look, I have a lot of life. I enjoy what I've done. I enjoy making people feel good. I enjoy making music sound good. I've written stuff for film and I've written stuff for television. I like to make music and I like to play and perform and I like to see songs that I've written or Mark and I have written um, make people react and have a vibrant feeling. I mean, does anybody go to a rock concert or a concert event to have a bad time? They go to have a good time and they go to relive a time in their life where maybe things were better and their life was more simple and times were just great. So I always hope that people go to have a nice time, and I'm glad that I've been able to do my part of that.
Yeah, great, fantastic. Thanks for coming down to. By the way, I know it's an effort and it's not straightforward. All the bands come down and they get paid or whatever. Plenty of bands book shows and don't come. Okay, because the pre-sales are bad or whatever it might be, and a lot has to line up. But the fact that you are coming down, it is meaningful to a lot of people, a lot of old school people that have been interested in rock and roll, because it's important to us still. It's as important to us as maybe not, bread and water, but you know what I'm saying. For our emotional health, it's very important. So thanks for doing that, mate. And it's been great to finally have this chat with you.
Really nice to meet you too. And yeah, we were never not going to go unless the promoter guy said, "Look, hey, it's just not going to work out." I did tell the Danny guy, "Please, I don't want to see you lose. I'd rather see you just come to some great casino shows or stuff in the States, tag along with us a few days, have fun, but don't lose your ass." And he's like, that's pretty honest to you. And I said, "Look, man, I don't want to see anybody. I like it when everybody wins. It's a really nice feeling when everybody can win together. And I'm much more that kind of guy." So when we booked it, I said, "Look, I'm going to buy these tickets." And well, you don't have the guy's deposit. I don't need the guy's fucking deposit. We're going to go until he tells us we're not going to go. And that was the feeling. So we're going to get on a plane on this coming Monday.
Yeah.
We'll land on a Wednesday in the afternoon. And we're going to do the best we can to let people have a good, fun time and see some things that they've not been exposed to in Australia.
There you go. Well, look forward to it. I'll be there. I'll be there. So fantastic.
Which gig are you going to?
Brisbane, Mansfield Tavern.
Mansfield Tavern. Okay. Please hit John if you would, and see if at least you and I can do a minute of FaceTime and maybe a photo together.
Mate, I'd love that. Thank you very much for the offer and the opportunity on that point. I'll let him know. That'd be unreal.
Please let him know, okay?
Yeah, sweet.
I appreciate it. I appreciate your support. I appreciate your love for the music, and you got a pretty good sense of the history of this stuff, and I appreciate you having an old fuck like me be able to talk a little bit about it.
I don't think we're too much different in ages these days. That's a scary thing, isn't it?
Scary thing. As
soon as you're 40, you're all old, mate.
Hey, listen, I tell people all the time, I'm like, "Look, man, I'm 66 years old." You're not fucking 66. I'm like, well, here's the thing. You say music and entertainment is so bad and it's bad for you, but you haven't done this and you look 20 years older than me.
Yeah.
And like, isn't that interesting?
There you go. So, that's right. Right there, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah. It's interesting. That's for sure. Anyway, look, I appreciate the love. I appreciate the support. I just say this, and I agree with you, RE, the some of the Vinny standpoints that you've got. I prefer not to publicize anything to do with that period, because I don't want people getting sucked down a rabbit hole for nothing.
Yeah, I hear you. It's one of those very odd chapters in rock history, if you like, that one there. And there were some very good people who, like you and the rest of the guys in Slaughter, that were along for the ride. And it's inexplicably weird looking at it. And
your instincts are right. Nobody was treated very well, and it wasn't exactly a fond memory. And at the end, there was certainly dollars and cents that never really materialized like it should have. And that's why I say I don't want to fuel to the fire of interest in this guy so he can do things to other people that might have been done to us.
I couldn't imagine
you know what I'm saying.
Any musician that, like any professional musician like you, would ever work with him again. I think you'd have to get bar guys. That's where he's at. But he's still trying.
There's not even any reason.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those weird things.
When either one of us say good luck, it's good luck with a funny meaning. Good luck, buddy.
Yeah,
You'll need it.
Yeah, exactly. Good luck to everybody else around you who's got to deal with you, basically.
Exactly correct. I'll see you in Brisbane.
I'll see you there, mate. Look forward to it.
Thank you again. Yes. Thank you for the time.
I would have dearly loved to have caught up with Dana at the Brisbane show, but unfortunately, as I mentioned in the introduction, they've been cancelled. They are going ahead in Sydney and Melbourne, however, but anyway, what can you do? So that's it. My name's Andrew Mackay-Smith, and I'm the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast. Until the next one, it's a very goodbye for now.